Okay, so have you ever gotten that feeling, like when you're playing a game and your heart's just racing,
Yeah.
whether you're the one hunting or the one being hunted?
Oh, absolutely. It's that adrenaline rush, right?
Exactly. And today we're diving deep into two giants in the world of asymmetric horror games that really nail that feeling. Dead by Daylight and Identity V.
Two games that have just completely taken the gaming world by storm. And we've been doing a ton of research, digging through articles, wikis, you name it, really getting into the nitty-gritty of what makes them tick.
Yeah, we want to give everyone listening a good look under the hood. Whether you've played one or both, or you're just curious about this genre, we're breaking it all down, the core mechanics, what sets them apart, the whole 9 yards.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so let's start with the OG. Dead by Daylight, eh?
The one that kind of kicked off this whole craze.
Right. It first hit the scene back in 2016, made by Behavior Interactive up in Canada. It's this online multiplayer game where you have one killer going up against 4 survivors.
Classic setup.
Totally. The killer's goal is to sacrifice all the survivors to this creepy entity, like some kind of eldritch horror. And how do they do that?
Hook 'em.
Hook them, that's right. 3 times on the hook, and they're gone.
Bye-bye.
Meanwhile, the survivors are frantically trying to fix up these generators, 5 out of 7 to be exact, to power up the exit gates and make a run for it.
It's a race against time.
Big time. And you can play this game on pretty much everything these days. Windows, PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, even your phone. They really went all out with accessibility.
Yeah, they did.
So now let's hop over to Identity V. This one popped up a couple of years later, in 2018.
This one's free to play.
Free to play, gotta love that. It's a collaboration between a Chinese company, NetEase, and funnily enough, Behavior Interactive again. Small world, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Similar setup, right? 1 hunter versus 4 survivors. But this time, the hunter eliminates survivors using these things called rocket chairs.
Sounds a bit more intense, no?
Definitely more
Right.
permanent. The survivors, though, they're still all about objectives. This time they're decoding cipher machines, 5 of them, to unlock their escape route.
So similar, but different.
Exactly. Now they can either bust out through exit gates or, get this, they can escape through this hidden underground dungeon.
But dungeon? What?
Yeah, a dungeon. It's this unique last-ditch effort thing. If you're the last survivor standing and enough cipher machines are done, boom, dungeon opens up for a solo escape.
Oh, that's a cool twist.
Right. So for this deep dive, we really want to dig into what connects these two games and, more importantly, what sets them apart.
You got it. Let's break it down.
Okay, so first things first, core gameplay loop.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, so in Dead by Daylight, those generators are everything to the survivors.
Lifeline.
Right, but it takes teamwork. Everyone has to pitch in to get those generators humming. All the while, they've got this killer breathing down their necks.
Yeah, talk about pressure.
Huge pressure. Now, if the killer hits a survivor twice, they're down. They go into this dying state. Super vulnerable. That's when the killer can scoop them up and haul them off to a hook.
The dreaded hook.
Oh yeah, everyone hates the hook.
Right.
And it's not a one and done thing. They go through stages on that hook.
Uh-oh.
First time, they can wiggle free or their buddies can rescue them. Second time, same deal, but it's riskier. Third time, that's it, they're toast. Sacrifice to the entity.
Oof, that's brutal.
It is, but wait, there's more. Let's say the survivors are slow pokes. Maybe they're having trouble with the generators or just can't find those exit gates. Well, once those gates are powered, or if the escape hatch gets closed, a timer starts ticking.
This does not sound good.
It's not. It's called the endgame collapse. Basically, it's game over for any survivors still stuck in the trial.
Talk about a last-minute scramble.
Right. It's like a final wave of panic.
Yeah.
So between the killer constantly hunting you and the clock ticking away, Dead by Daylight keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Definitely makes for an intense experience.
So now let's look at how Identity V handles things. Similar vibes, but different execution. Instead of generators, we have these cipher machines.
Gotcha.
Same deal. The survivors got to work together to decode them.
Team effort.
Absolutely. But this time, they're up against the hunter. Now, if the hunter catches a survivor, they get strapped to a rocket chair. No dying state, no second chances,
Straight to the punishment.
right to it. And each launch from the chair is like a strike. Get launched enough times, and you're out of the match.
No coming back from that.
Nope. But there's a cool twist. Your teammates can try to rescue you from the rocket chair.
Nice. So there's still hope.
There is, but it's a risky move. The rescuer could end up on the chair themselves. So it adds this whole layer of strategy to the game.
Makes you think twice before you rush in.
Exactly. But here's the really unique part. If you're the last survivor standing, and at least 2 cipher machines are decoded, this secret dungeon opens up.
A dungeon.
Yeah, it's like this hidden escape route just for you. No endgame collapse, no waiting around. You just book it out of there solo.
So it's like a totally different kind of escape scenario.
Totally. So both games have that 1v4 asymmetric core, right? It's all about survivors working together to complete objectives and escape while a single powerful antagonist tries to stop them.
The classic hunter and prey.
Exactly. But the way they achieve this is where things get interesting.
The devil's in the details.
Totally. So in Dead by Daylight, you have that whole generator repair thing and the 3-stage hook system, which creates this whole tension around rescuing your teammates. But Identity V, with its cipher machines and the more immediate threat of the rocket share, it's just a different pace.
Yeah.
There's this sense of urgency in Identity V, like you're always one wrong move away from elimination.
And you mentioned there's no dying state in Identity V.
Yeah, you're either running, being chased, or you're strapped to that rocket chair.
Yeah, that ups the stakes.
For sure. And speaking of elimination, that's another big difference.
Okay, yeah, walk me through that.
So in Dead by Daylight, that 3-hook system gives you multiple chances to save your friends. It's all about those clutch rescues. One good save can turn the whole match around.
Oh yeah, that's always a hype moment.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But the rocket share in Identity V, it's more like a countdown. Each launch is a tick of the clock, getting closer to 0. If the survivors aren't on point with their rescues, it can lead to quick eliminations.
Got it. So higher stakes, but maybe faster eliminations.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But then you have that dungeon escape in Identity V, which throws a whole new wrench into things.
Right. There's nothing quite like that in Dead by Daylight.
Well, it's like a last-minute twist.
Cool.
So let's talk about the survivors and how they manage to survive. In Dead by Daylight, the survivors' controls are pretty basic. You sprint to create distance, walk to be stealthy, crouch to hide, and if you're injured, you can even crawl.
Makes sense.
Right. Then you have pallets scattered around the map.
Those are lifesavers.
Seriously. You can drop them right in the killer's path to stun them. It gives you a few precious seconds to run or vault over something.
Those pallets are the difference between making it and being hooked.
For real.
Yeah.
But there are also items. You can find them in chests during the trial or bring your own.
Okay, yeah, tell me more about the items.
So you have your toolboxes to speed up generator repairs, med kits to patch yourself up or heal others, flashlights to temporarily blind the killer.
Oh, that could be so clutch.
Super clutch. Especially if the killer's trying to pick up a downed survivor, you can even interrupt them with a well-timed flashbang. And then there are maps and keys, but those are more niche. They usually work with specific perks or to find the hatch.
So there's a good variety.
Tons of variety. But wait, there's more.
Oh.
You also have these skill checks that pop up during certain actions, like when you're repairing a generator or healing someone. They're these little timing-based button presses.
Skill checks.
Yeah. And if you fail one, it can alert the killer to your location or slow down your progress. So there's a little bit of a risk-reward to every action.
Big time. Now, let's compare that to Identity V. What's really interesting about Identity V is that the survivors, they all have these unique roles and abilities that are front and center.
Okay, I see what you mean. So it's not a blank slate character that you then customize with perks. It's more about choosing the right character from the start.
Exactly. Like in Dead by Daylight, the survivors share a lot of those basic mechanics. They differentiate themselves through teachable perks that you unlock over time.
Oh.
But in Identity V, your character choice matters a lot more from the get-go. It's like each survivor has their own special sauce that can totally change how you play the game.
I'm getting that.
And the environment plays a huge role in both games. But Identity V, they take it a step further. They design their maps with specific layouts and interactive elements that really work with certain survivor abilities.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just about knowing how to loop the killer. It's about knowing how to use the environment to your advantage with your specific character.
You got it. Like, for example, a gardener might be really good at manipulating obstacles, while a forward might be all about dashing and creating distance. So it's about picking the right character for the right map, too.
That's a really cool strategic layer.
Totally. So both games give the survivors tools to evade and escape. Both use the environment in clever ways.
Yeah,
But how they go about it is different.
I'm getting that, yeah.
So Dead by Daylight gives you a more universal set of tools, like those pallets and vaulting, that work for everyone. And then you have the item system, which gives you flexibility within a match, depending on what you find.
Makes sense.
Identity V, they go all in on those unique character abilities. It's more about mastering your chosen character's strengths and coordinating with your team.
That's a really different approach.
It is.
So let's talk about the other side of the coin, the killers and hunters. What makes them tick?
All right, so in Dead by Daylight, the killers, they're just a smidge faster than the survivors, which keeps the pressure on. Oh yeah, and then there's ore reading. It's like this sixth sense that lets them see the locations of generators, hooks, and sometimes even the survivors themselves.
Whoa, that sounds handy.
It is. But what really makes each killer unique is their power.
Yes, each one has its own flavor.
Totally. You've got the trapper laying down bear traps, the nurse teleporting all over the place, the huntress chucking hatchets. Every killer plays differently.
I love that variety.
It's so good. And then there are add-ons, these little modifications you can equip to tweak your powers and create all sorts of different builds.
Oh, that's where the real customization comes in.
Totally. And we can't forget about the terror radius. It's
Yeah.
like this heartbeat sound that lets survivors know the killer's nearby.
Ominous.
Super creepy. And then there's the red stain. It's a red light that comes from the killer's face, and it shows you which way they're looking.
So it's crucial information for survivors to avoid being spotted.
Absolutely. So now, over in Identity V, the hunters also have unique skills, but they also have these things called secondary skills.
Okay, so what are those?
They're kind of like extra talents they can activate during a match to gain an edge.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So they can get things like a temporary speed boost,
Yeah.
faster attack recovery, even the ability to see nearby survivors.
Okay, yeah, those sound pretty game-changing.
They are.
Yeah.
It adds this whole other layer of thinking for the hunter during a chase.
Right. You've got to be smart about when and how to use them.
Totally. So
Yeah.
both games have this strong core. A single, powerful antagonist going up against those four survivors.
And they have unique abilities to make that happen.
Exactly.
Right.
But the way they go about it is different.
Right.
Dead by Daylight, they go all out with those killer powers. Each power has its own mechanics, and then you add those add-ons, and it creates this huge variety in gameplay. Every match can be a completely different experience.
Okay, so you're saying it's very killer-specific.
Extremely. Now, the secondary skills in Identity V, they're definitely impactful. They can totally change a chase. But they don't fundamentally change the character in the same way those elaborate power sets do in Dead by Daylight.
Got it. So you're saying that in Identity V, a lot of the skill comes from mastering the hunter's basic attack patterns and using those secondary skills strategically in different situations.
You got it. Now let's talk about leveling up and making your character your own. In Dead by Daylight, you've got the perk system. It's all about these special abilities that both survivors and killers can equip.
Oh, that's a staple.
Totally. Then there's this thing called the blood web. It's like this weird web-shaped skill tree where you spend blood points, which is the in-game currency, to unlock new perks, add-ons for your killers, and items for your survivors.
Right. And you earn those blood points by playing matches.
Exactly. As you level up a character's blood web, you eventually hit level 50, and that's when you can prestige them.
Oh, yeah, the prestige system. Tell me about that.
Basically, you reset their level and their inventory. But you get a shiny cosmetic reward, and here's the important part. You unlock the ability to get higher tiers of that character's unique perks on other characters.
Oh, so it encourages you to play different roles.
Totally. Now, Identity V, they do things a little differently. They have this thing called the intrinsic persona web. Most people just call it persona.
Persona.
Got it. Yeah, it's like a talent tree for both hunters and survivors. You earn points by playing matches, and you use those points to progress through the web.
Okay.
As you progress, you get permanent buffs and extra talents you can activate during a match. It lets you tweak your playstyle across all the characters.
So it's more universal than Dead by Daylight's perk system.
Totally. But here's where it gets a little wild. Identity V has a bunch of different currencies.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, get ready. So first, you have clues. That's your main currency. You earn them through gameplay, and you use them to unlock new characters and decorative items.
Okay, so that's pretty straightforward.
It is. Then you have fragments, which you can use to buy cosmetic skins and accessories.
So far, so good.
Right. Then there are inspirations, which are for their gotcha system.
Oh boy, gotcha.
Yep, you spend inspirations for a chance to get rare character skins.
The thrill of the gamble.
Totally. And finally, you have echoes. Those are the premium currency, the ones you buy with real money. You can use them for direct purchases, or you can trade them for inspirations.
Ah, so that's how they monetize the game.
You got it. So both games, they give you ways to level up your characters, unlock new abilities, and get all sorts of cool cosmetics.
Yeah, customization is key.
But the way they go about it is different.
They take different routes to get there.
Absolutely. Dead by Daylight's Blood Web, it really makes you focus on each individual character, at least at first. You're investing time and resources to unlock everything, then you prestige them to share those perks with your other characters. It's all about building up each character.
I see. So it's very character focused.
Very much so. Identity V, with their persona system, it gives you a base level of customization for all your characters.
Yeah.
And then you have that whole separate system for unlocking characters and the whole multi-currency thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely more complex.
It is.
Especially with the gacha system where you're trying to get those rare skins.
Yeah, that can be a whole other rabbit hole.
Totally. Now, let's talk about the atmosphere, the setting, and story. Dead by Daylight, it's got this whole creepy narrative going on.
Lay it on me.
Okay, so basically, you have these survivors. They get snatched from their lives and thrown into these never-ending trials.
Yeah.
And it's all happening in this nightmare realm ruled by this ancient, evil being called the Entity.
The Entity. Okay, yeah, that sounds spooky.
Super spooky. And each trial takes place in a different realm. Each one's usually connected to a specific killer's backstory, which adds a lot of depth to the environments.
I like that.
Right. And Behavior Interactive, they didn't stop there. They've added even more lore through these things called tomes within the game. Yeah. And then there's the Rift, which is this whole other thing that dives even deeper into the characters in the world of the Entity.
So there's a lot to uncover for lore fans.
Tons.
Right.
Now, Identity V, they went with a more direct approach to their story. They have an actual story mode.
Oh, really?
Yep. You play as this detective named Orpheus, and he's lost his memory.
Classic amnesia trope.
I know, right? So he ends up at this creepy place called Elitist Manor, and he's there to investigate these disappearances.
Okay.
But to do that, he has to participate in these games and try to piece together clues from diary entries.
Interesting.
Yeah. And later on in the story, the perspective shifts to Alistair Ross, a journalist who's investigating similar mysteries.
So it sounds like there's this overarching mystery they're trying to unravel.
Exactly. It's like a meta story that frames the whole gameplay.
That's cool.
Right. So both games, they use this horror setting to give you a reason for those intense matches. But they approach it differently.
Right.
Dead by Daylight, their lore is a bit more scattered. You get bits and pieces from the environments, the characters' backstories, and all that extra content.
So you really have to dig for it.
You do. Identity V, though, they put their story front and center with that story mode.
Okay.
It gives you a clear connection to the overall plot and the characters.
It's more story-driven, I'm getting that.
Definitely. Okay, let's get down to the business side of things. How do these games stay afloat? How do they keep giving us new content?
Ah, yes, the monetization question.
Exactly. So Dead by Daylight, they mainly use a buy-to-play model.
Yeah.
You pay up front, and then they have all these optional DLC packs.
Right.
These packs usually include new killers, new survivors, and new maps.
That's the good stuff.
Right. And you can buy those DLCs with real money, or if you want the non-licensed characters and cosmetic items, you can earn iridescent shards in the game and use those to unlock them.
So you have options.
You do. Now, Identity V, being free to play, it works differently. It revolves around those multiple in-game currencies we talked about earlier.
Right. Clues, fragments, inspirations, and echoes. And you can buy echoes with real money.
Exactly. And a big chunk of their monetization comes from the character skin gacha system.
Oh yeah, the gotcha.
You spend those inspirations, which you can earn or buy, for a chance to get rare skins.
So that's where the temptation comes in.
For sure.
So basically, both games need to make money to keep things going, and they both give players ways to get new characters and cool cosmetics, just different methods.
Totally. But their core models are different. Dead by Daylight has that upfront price with optional DLC. And even though they have an in-game currency, a lot of the new content is locked behind those paid expansions.
Right.
Now, Identity V, because it's free, they lean more heavily on those in-app purchases, and especially that gacha system.
Yeah.
Everyone wants those rare skins. It's a pretty classic strategy for free-to-play mobile games.
Definitely. All right, let's talk crossovers.
Yeah, this is where things get exciting. Dead by Daylight, they've become known for bringing in all of these amazing guest stars from the world of horror. It's like a who's who of horror icons.
I mean, yeah, they've got pretty much everyone.
It's crazy. They have characters from Halloween, Leatherface, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Saw, Stranger Things.
Oh, and Stranger Things even left the game for a while and then came back.
I know, right? It was like a whole thing.
It was.
And then there's Silent Hill, Resident Evil, Hellraiser. but sadly that one's leaving soon.
Ah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, it is. And then they have Alien, Chucky, Alan Wake, and they even go beyond horror with stuff like Dungeons and Dragons, Tomb Raider, Castlevania, Tokyo Ghoul, and even Five Nights at Freddy's.
Wow, that's quite the mix.
Right. And then you have the cosmetic collaborations like Attack on Titan, the super creepy art of Junji Ito.
Oh, I love his work.
He's amazing. And then there's stuff like Iron Maiden, Slipknot, and get this, Nicolas Cage as a survivor.
What?
Yeah, it's wild. So Identity V, they're also big into crossovers. They have their own style.
Okay, so what kind of crossovers do they do?
They've done a lot of collabs with video games like Danganronpa and Persona.
Oh, those are popular.
Super popular. And then there's the movie Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, classic.
Totally. And then they've done a bunch of anime and manga series, stuff like The Promised Neverland, Death Note, and more Junji Ito with Tomy.
Oh, yeah, Tommy's creepy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they have Bungo Stray Dogs and Case Closed. They even have some crossovers that were only available in China, so they're definitely catering to different regions, too.
Makes sense. So both games are clearly using crossovers to bring in a wider audience and keep things fresh for the players.
Exactly. But Dead by Daylight, they really lean into those Western horror icons. They've got all the big names in slasher flicks and monster movies.
Yeah, it's like a celebration of all things horror.
It is. Identity V, though, they branch out a lot more. Anime, manga, other video game styles. They're not afraid to mix things up.
And that probably reflects their target audience.
Totally. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about what else these games offer. What else can you do besides the main 1v4 mode?
All right, lay it on me.
Okay, so Dead by Daylight. They've created a bunch of spin-off video games. There's Hooked on You, which is a dating sim, believe it or not.
What? A dating sim with the killer?
Yeah, it's super silly and fun.
That's hilarious.
And then they have What the Fog, which is a roguelike game where you team up with other players.
Oh, cool. Like a cooperative experience.
Exactly. And then there's The Casting of Frank Stone, which is more of a story-driven horror game.
So they're really trying out different genres.
Yeah. And they even made a digital pinball game.
Wow, they're really branching out.
Oh, yeah. And they have an official board game adaptation, too.
So if you want to bring the horror to the tabletop, you can.
Exactly. Now, Identity V, they've gone in a different direction. They've added all these alternative game modes right into the main game.
Oh, interesting. So it's all in one place.
Yeah. They're called entertainment mode.
Entertainment modes, okay.
Yeah. So they have Duo Hunters, which is 2 hunters versus 8 survivors on a bigger map.
So it's like a bigger, more chaotic version of the main mode.
Exactly. And then there's Blackjack, which is based on the card game, but with special abilities thrown in.
Ah, that's cool.
Then they have Tarot, where 2 teams with survivors and a hunter each compete. And there's Chasing Shadows, which is an obstacle course.
Sounds intense.
Then there's Frenzy Rhapsody, which is basically dodgeball.
Okay, I did not see that coming.
It's wild. And then you have Hide and Seek, which is a prop hunt mode.
Oh, I love prop hunt.
It's so much fun. And finally, they have Copycat, which is a social deduction mode like Werewolf or Mafia.
So there's a lot of variety there.
Tons. So both games have definitely gone beyond that core 1v4 gameplay, but they've done it in very different ways.
Yeah, different approaches for sure.
Dead by Daylight, they've mostly focused on creating separate spin-off games in different genres or a board game.
Makes sense.
But Identity V, they've added all these different game modes right into the main game, so you get all that variety without having to buy anything extra.
So more bang for your buck in a way.
Exactly. So let's sum it all up. What are the biggest takeaways when we compare these two games, Dead by Daylight and Identity V?
Okay, big picture. Both of them totally nail that 1v4 asymmetric horror experience. They've both got that cat and mouse gameplay, the thrill of being hunted, and the satisfaction of escaping.
It's primal.
Totally. But it's how they do it that really sets them apart.
Right.
Dead by Daylight, it's all about those strategic items, the long, drawn-out chases, and that massive roster of killers that each play so differently. Identity V, on the other hand, it's all about those unique survivor abilities, that overarching story mode, the free-to-play model with the gotcha system, and those crossovers that pull from all sorts of different media.
And we can't forget about all those extra game modes.
Definitely. So you, dear listener, what kind of player are you? What gets you excited about asymmetric horror?
Right. Are you all about that resource management, surviving by the skin of your teeth, and facing off against those iconic horror villains in Dead by Daylight?
Or are you more drawn to those unique character roles and the unfolding mystery of the story in Identity V?
And let's leave you with this. Think about how these two games, with their different takes on a similar idea, contribute to the world of online horror. Why is that hunter versus hunted dynamic so captivating?
What is it about that keeps us coming back for more?
Maybe this deep dive has sparked your curiosity. Maybe you want to learn more about the characters, the lore, the communities.
Now that you have a better understanding of how they work and their different philosophies, maybe it's time to jump in and experience them for yourself.
And see which one grabs you.
Exactly.
Because both are amazing in their own right.
Absolutely.
And they offer something really unique to the genre.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, that's it for this deep dive. Until next time.
See you then.